$55 million settlement with the victims from JP Morgan. There was that also included Jess Staley and them paying off for that too. So there were transactions obviously at JP Morgan, not to mention that there were over 20 people at JP Morgan that had interacted with Jeffrey Epstein over the years. I also want to show a clip of something that nobody's talking about. Actually, the FBI did, in fact, go to Epstein Island and did collect evidence at Epstein Island. We have some drone footage back from 2017. That would be clip number 7, that you can see right there that the FBI was in Jeffrey Epstein's island home, his actual residence on Epstein Island, not to mention that they got footage and all kinds of information about underground tunnels. He filled in those tunnels. I believe he paid $27 million to fill in the tunnels underneath Epstein Island, not to mention the temple and a giant human size, I guess it was a sundial in the middle of the entire island. The whole thing was very creepy, but Epstein Island was definitely searched by the FBI. We have actual footage right there. Moving forward, I would like to also remind you that there was Alan Dershowitz was all caught up in this, and he had something interesting to say yesterday that I took note of. That is clip number 8. Let's check out Alan Dershowitz's stuff, what he had to say about the Epstein case at this point.
This is not an opinion. This is a fact. I have seen, remember, I was accused falsely on the Epstein, and ultimately I was completely cleared. The woman admitted that she may have mistook me for somebody else and withdrew all of her lawsuits. And so from day one, from the day I was accused, I said I want every document out because I knew every document would prove I was innocent. So let me tell you, I know for a fact documents are being suppressed. And they're being suppressed to protect individuals. I know the names of the individuals. I know why they're being suppressed. I know who's suppressing them. But I'm bound by confidentiality from a judge and cases, and I can't disclose what I know. But I hand to God, I know the names of people whose files are being suppressed in order to protect them. And that's wrong.
Just out of curiosity about names, are these politicians?
Well, that is Dershowitz. Now, first of all, he's been involved with Jeffrey Epstein since 2007. Also, the woman he's talking about is Virginia Giuffre, and she had a very bizarre suicide that many people question if that was suicide. It seems very odd that all of this would unfold within a month of that. At the same time, apparently, Bill O'Reilly claims that he spoke to Donald Trump about Jeffrey Epstein and that he has a different take on why things haven't come out. Let's check out Bill O'Reilly, clip 9.
I talked to President Trump man to man, eye to eye, on St. Patrick's Day about this and the Kennedy files and the King files. It was all one conversation. And he said, and I agree, there are a lot of names associated with Epstein that had nothing to do with Epstein's conduct. They maybe had lunch with him or maybe had some correspondence for one thing or another. If that name gets out, those people are destroyed because there's not going to be any context. Media doesn't care about context. So you can't do that. You can't destroy human beings by putting out the files, whatever they may be.
So basically, at this point, we have all different conflicting things. But if people are going to be hurt by their names coming out, that is not the problem. That has nothing to do with anything. The truth is that people deserve to know, particularly the victims, deserve to know the full scope of what we're dealing with. This went on for 20 years. There's plenty of financial transactions. There's plenty of white-collar crime involved here. As I told you yesterday, the U.S. Virgin Islands was about to file yet another case against JP Morgan Chase. And at the last minute, apparently there was a visit from Auto President Joe Biden to the U.S. Virgin Islands, and he met with the governor there. Right after that, that prosecutor was relieved, and that case went nowhere. So there are still things out there. And at this point, we do deserve to know. Now, I guess Bill O'Reilly is talking about much of the information that came out years ago about Jeffrey Epstein's relationship with Harvard, and particularly with Larry Summers, who was the president of Harvard and the economist under Obama, who's been out there in the news lately. I don't know why he's not laying low, but there was a lot of questions about that relationship. Also about millions of dollars that he donated to Harvard. Also, he had a whole relationship with the MIT Media Center, where the Professor Ito had to resign. We know that he was very involved in having conferences with all of the people involved in the Human Genome Project. So their names have all been out there. Nowak, Steven Pinker, all these different scientists. That's what he did. He invested in science. He loved transhumanism. I don't know, and I've never heard anything about anyone looking into what was going on in his New Mexico home that he bought from Governor Richardson, who was also implicated in many of the documents that had come out, though he's passed away by now. But we have a situation where it came out that he wanted to seed a race of women at his New Mexico mansion. And some of the testimony, particularly from Ms. Farmer in the Ghislaine Maxwell case, dove into what was going on at the New Mexico ranch. So at this point, whoever was involved with him and is innocent, I don't see the problem or why that would be a reason. And we will dig more into this as we go forward. But for right now, I do want to mention one person that we know for sure is connected to Jeffrey Epstein, and that is Reid Hoffman. Reid Hoffman, if you're unaware, funded the entire E. Jean Carroll case against Donald Trump. And what's ironic about that case is that that was one woman who had an implausible story about Donald Trump from 30 years ago. We have thousands of Epstein victims that have real stories, that have depositions, that have filed lawsuits. Don't they deserve the same respect as a woman that's claiming something happened with no witnesses and no evidence? Well, I'll tell you what happened. Reid Hoffman's case with E. Jean Carroll, the appeals court in New York has held up the verdict. So it turns out that just yesterday, the U.S. Court of Appeals in the Second District affirmed the jury's verdict in E. Jean Carroll case that found President Trump liable for sexually assaulting her, supposedly in a dressing room at Bergdorf Goodman 30 years ago. But they are giving him 90 days to appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. I'd frankly like to see it go to the U.S. Supreme Court so that we can get some information about who really paid for that. It turns out that not only Reid Hoffman, but George Conway, and of course, these are the same people that have been behind the resistance against Trump all the way back to 2016. The Manhattan Federal Court found Trump liable for sexually abusing and defaming Carroll and ordered him to pay $5 million in damages. The appeals court affirmed the verdict weeks after it rejected Trump's bid to have the full judicial lineup in the circuit rehear his appeal. Again, a three-judge panel of the circuit court ruled against Trump. So now it is up to the Supreme Court. A spokesperson for Trump said the American people are supporting President Trump in historic numbers, and they demand an immediate end to the political weaponization of our justice system and a swift dismissal of all of the witch hunts, including the Democrat-funded Carroll hoaxes. I really do believe that getting to the bottom of the funding of all of the lawfare, because we also have a situation not just with him over there, but Reid Hoffman has been involved in a lot of anti-Trump activity, including all the way back to the Transition Integrity Project, not to mention that all of the lawfare crew that seem to have written all of the cases that went to Alvin Bragg, went to Jack Smith, went to Letitia James, and also to Fani Willis in Georgia, that they were all basically coming out of Brookings. And there are memos written by Andrew Weissman and Norm Eisen and a bunch of the different lawfare crew over at Brookings. And we remember Brookings was very involved in the Russia hoax also because Dushenko was there, but also Fiona Hill was there, who ended up testifying in the fake Ukraine impeachment. So all of these people are connected by money. And if we can look into the white-collar crimes behind the lawfare, behind the E. Jean Carroll case, behind all of these cases, and start digging into the money, particularly at Brookings and elsewhere, we have Just Security out of NYU Law that happens to be related to Andrew Weissman. They were very involved in all of the lawfare against the lawyers, against Donald Trump and his family, against Bannon, against Navarro. All of the lawfare was coming out of there. We also have Norm Eisen's crew and also his States United. He also now has the State Democracy Defenders, which has gotten together all of the blue state AGs to allow Norm Eisen and Mark Elias to go out and basically do huge lawsuits, including all of the blue states, without them really being involved, letting the lawfare team do it. This is all funded by the same globalist billionaire oligarchs, most of them members or on the board of the World Economic Forum and other globalist regional meeting planners all over the world. So I don't know why we can't just get to the white collar crimes, be it on Epstein, be it on any of the lawfare, be it on any of these NGOs that are undermining our judicial system and continue to fund these uprisings all over the country. It goes back to all the same people. And Reid Hoffman happens to be one of the biggest of these funders of this endless cycle of turning our justice system inside out and upside down. And I wouldn't be surprised if he is involved in this, because there were 99 John Does and Jane Does in the original Epstein cases, and none of them have been released. And two of them, a Jane Doe and a John Doe, have been fighting to keep all of the information sealed. It's time to know who they are.
Fox News alert, the Ayatollah's gone into hiding. He's believed to be holed up inside an underground bunker northeast of the capital. Iranian proxies, which have been severely degraded, are threatening to commit acts of terror against American troops and American ships in the region.
And sources are telling ABC News that President Trump has approved the attack plans for Iran that were presented to him.
And American businesses are now bracing for cyber attacks. The whole world's watching.
In light of that news, I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, "Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks." That's a quote directly from the president for all of you today.
What's your take on that? Because people say, well, that's just the press secretary. No, that's Trump talking. Now it looks like he's given himself more breathing room, 2 weeks, when we were coming down to the deadline. And the last deadline passed, obviously, and within 24 hours, Israel struck.
Trump is speaking through her, right? Those are his words. And he's waiting, because you put U.S. bombers over there with bunker buster bombs. It embroils America into something that could last a decade.
First and foremost, the taxpayers are going to lose the burden of paying for unbelievable amount of stuff for the illegal aliens. So today, HHS has announced it is prohibiting illegal aliens from accessing 13 additional public programs, including Head Start, health workforce scholarships and loans, mental health and substance abuse services, and family planning. The Department of Energy is discontinuing. The Department of Education first is discontinuing free tuition for illegal aliens and post-secondary career and technical education programs. The Department of Agriculture is limiting illegal aliens' access to federally funded food assistance programs and also ending race-based federal programs for farmers. The Department of Labor is preventing illegal aliens from utilizing federal workforce development resources and grants. And the Department of Justice is eliminating loopholes that previously allowed illegal aliens to access taxpayer-funded benefits. All of this is great news on top of the U.S. Treasury shockingly announcing that they have a surplus in June 2025. Believe it or not, they're saying that they have a $27 billion surplus in June following a negative $350 billion in May, thanks to tariffs. Increasing tariff collection are helping shore up government finances, says Scott Besson. Also, Trump White House payroll shrinks 29% year over year. Believe it or not, the Trump administration is spending $44 million, paying about 400 employees in 2025. This will be the lowest payroll for the executive branch since 2009. 35 of Trump's staffers are making less than $200,000, and that only one staffer in Joe Biden's regime made anything below $200,000. So that's a big savings for the American people, 29% savings in terms of paying that out. Another great thing that's happening, we all learned during the pandemic that over the years since H.W. Bush and the Bush, Clinton, Obama, Biden world order, basically they have sold out our country, and our entire supply chain has been dependent upon China, particularly for rare earth and minerals and all kinds of things. Well, guess what? The United States is to open the first rare earth mine in 70 years. Department of Energy Secretary Chris Wright continues to make rare earth resource development a top priority of the administration. And it turns out that this is going to happen in, it looks like, Wyoming. So in Wyoming, there is the Ramaco resource in Sheridan, Wyoming, that has deposits of rare earth minerals worth up to $37 billion, they say. Well, it turns out that Chris Wright has teamed up with Ramaco ICAM Technology Center in Wyoming, and they are celebrating that we will now be working together to mine rare earth minerals. This is declaration of America's resolve to reclaim its leadership in critical minerals and energy independence. Ramaco will be developing the first new mine to lead the United States in creating viable domestic supply line of strategic rare earth and critical minerals. But that's not it for taking back energy dominance and also not depending on China so much anymore. The Pentagon is becoming the largest shareholder in a rare earth mining company at the same time as well. These rare earths elements will be used in fighter jets, missiles, drones, EVs, phones, and AI hardware. Right now, China controls 80% of the production of these rare earth minerals. And the U.S., though, underneath our soil, has about the ability to supply 85% of what the whole world needs, and they are going to break ground shortly. Trump Pentagon is investing billions in MP Materials, a U.S. rare earth firm, to build a second domestic magnet plant by 2028. The DoD will take a 15% stake, and meantime, we are looking at a situation where we will have U.S.-made magnets from the new 10X facility that will go to defense and commercial consumers inside America. 10,000 metric tons per year of domestic magnet production. Great news all around. Now, to go back to another issue that has not been resolved, the Butler attempted assassination of Donald Trump is back in the news again. Luckily, there are people still looking into it instead of what has been going on with the memory holing. So Ron Johnson is preparing to issue subpoenas to the DOJ and the FBI to find out what is going on in that investigation and to get more information. Yesterday, 6 Secret Service agents were put on leave while the investigation goes forward. And Ron Johnson, of course, is now the chairman of the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations. And he told Fox News that he has approved subpoenas on Wednesday to get more information from 2 agencies, but has described the investigative process overall as maddening because of red tape he's experienced so far. He'd like for it to be bipartisan, but he's gotten stonewalled along the way. There are other people that actually deserve answers, too, that we might have forgotten about. And I wanted to play a clip of some of the family members that are also demanding information about what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. And they deserve answers, as do the American people and Donald Trump. Let's take a look at clip 11 and the families that are demanding answers as well.
As far as the Secret Service, you failed my brother. You failed our family. How does this 20-year-old snot-nosed kid outsmart the Secret Service? My biggest frustration is that everybody knew, and we have all seen the videos.
Yeah, someone's on top of the roof. Look.
They're everywhere. There's people saying there's a guy on the roof.
Right there, see him?
He has a gun. Why did they walk him out? Why? If they would have waited one more minute until the threat had subsided, this whole thing would have taken a totally different trajectory, and my brother would still be alive.
What happened?
For shooting victims Dutch and Copenhagen, they want answers too. What would justice look like for you?
Truth, whatever the truth actually would be, unredacted reports.
David, do you want accountability?
Oh, yeah, I definitely want accountability. I mean, if you're going to do a job, do it the way it's supposed to be done.
They've heard recent reports of the current FBI Director Kash Patel and FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino saying there isn't much else to this story. Thomas Crooks acted alone. Do you think there's more to the story?
More than likely, but we'll probably never hear anything about it.
I would like to hear what's being held back. There's phones that were found. There's devices that were not fully exposed. I would like to hear about that. I understand because of their position, they're not personally liable, but because of their position, they should have job liability.
What would justice look like for you and your family?
We want accountability. We want somebody named. We want names. That's what we want. We want accountability. People should be fired. This should have happened before now. Here we are a year later, and we still don't know, the three of us, I'm speaking for the three of us, we still don't know anything more than we knew then.
As we've been reporting
so
about,
that's
the
where we
Secret
are.
Service-
And I think pretty much everyone in America feels that way at this point. It's almost unbelievable that we're almost a year later. Like I said earlier, it's almost unbelievable we're almost 10 years later from the murder of Seth Rich. It is just getting ridiculous. Are the American people entitled to know anything about anything our government has done and who's been involved and what is being hidden? This probably all goes back to the National Security Act and the lie we always get told about reasons of national security are why we can't find out anything. Usually that entails when our government has done criminal acts against the people or against other people, and they don't want us to know about it. It's one cover-up after another. Something else that came out that I think the American people should be aware of, because it's a disgrace. When I look into how much we've been sold out since World War II and lied to, it's unbelievable. Yesterday it came out that the foreign farm land purchase map was unveiled, and it turns out that 46 million acres of forest and farmland in America are held by foreign investors, including countries hostile to America. So basically what's come out is that there's been an increase of foreign persons buying up land over all 50 states and Puerto Rico. As of December 31st, 2023, approximately 45.8 million acres, that's 71,562 square miles, slightly larger than Washington State of America's soil, belongs to foreign entities. Chinese companies and investors, some directly involved with the Chinese Communist Party, own more than 277,000 acres of agricultural land across 30 states. Texas far outranks other states in terms of Chinese bought land with 123,700 acres owned. North Carolina, Missouri both have 42,000 acres owned by Chinese ownership, and Utah 33,000. Also, other investors are Canada, Netherlands, Italy, the UK. They cumulatively own 60% of our land. And basically, there is really no explanation for how much we've been sold out. Why is this allowed to happen in the United States of America behind the backs of the people that live in this country? I don't think any American people really knew about this. And then we were hearing about the Chinese buying farmland all over the country, especially very dangerously next to military installations. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. How this was allowed to happen, I will never know. But we have to make some serious changes along this path we are on and make some new decisions about the future for this country. And that's going to come from us, people. It is going to be local action. It is going to be patriots getting involved, and it's going to be asking for accountability. Anything that is not constitutional should be reversed, but things that are constitutional need to be held account and need to be ensured, and we need to make sure that our government is doing the job of the people. Their job is to work for us, and particularly to hold up the Constitution, and that is not happening. It looks like we're being sold out for gain, and by and large, foreign countries are profiting off of our money, our dollars, our labor, and our country and our land. A side note that most people might not have been following, Claire Bronfman of the Nexium case and the Bronfman family was released from custody last week to no fanfare. But it turns out that Claire Bronfman, who you remember was involved in Nexium. In fact, she funded the Nexium cult in upstate New York, for which Raniere, the leader of the cult, is in jail for life. Well, she was let out in Brooklyn this past week after a 3-year period. And now she's going into supervised release. But it turns out that she is still funding Ranieri's appeals and defense. If you remember, she was fined $500,000, forfeited $6 million, had to pay restitution for one of the female victims to the tune of $96,000. Again, she was sentenced to 27 months. He imposed an upward variance of 3 times the high end of the guidelines because she would not basically say that Nexium was bad. In fact, to the very end, including now, she still says that Nexium helped her and saved her life and that Ranieri was the best thing that happened to her. She was charged again for smuggling 11 people, illegal aliens, into America and then taking their passports and then abusing them for labor. And then multiple women were abused sexually by Ranieri, and the sex cult that was branding women with Ranieri's initials. She exacted labor that she did not pay for and took advantage of these individuals' financial straits and immigration status in a manner that exacerbated both their financial and emotional vulnerabilities. Apparently, like I said, she is still funding Keith Ranieri's ongoing legal situation, and she still says to this day that she feels that Nexium was a good thing and that it helped a lot of people. The judge said Ms. Bronfman's allegiance to Ranieri shines through again and again. She has paid his legal fees and to this day maintains that he greatly changed her life for the better. So one of the heiresses of the Bronfman family is now free. The other one never was involved in that. We don't know what's to come next, but we do know that she is in New York, and New York has its own problems without having Nexium return to New York, because it looks like Zoran Mamdani is leading the race for mayor, and people are saying he's probably going to win. Not only is he a socialist aligned with CARE and the Democrat Socialists of America, but he also has a lot of policies that are coming out. One of them is particularly disturbing as a former New Yorker. It has been released that he has a policy of ending NYPD showing up in response to domestic violence, an issue that in New York had the NYPD called out over 100,000 times in 2024. Mamdani apparently says that if somebody is surviving going through domestic violence, there are so many different situations that would be far better handled by people trained to deal with those specific situations than by a officer with a gun. Frankly, he believes more in that there should be crisis responders that should replace police in mental health cases. A policy memo does not define such cases, but says that he does not believe that police responding to domestic violence is the right way to go. He says that repeated requests for help from an NYPD doesn't really work out. Though I do want you to know that domestic violence cases in America actually account for the largest amount of murder of women, particularly between 18 and 24. The World Journal of Psychiatry study found that intimate partner violence is the absolute leading cause of homicide, death for women, like I said, particularly between 18 and 24. But maybe because he is a follower of Sharia law, that he looks at domestic violence different. It's not really clear what the reason is here, but that is what is happening. Also, if you are unaware, the IRS in the last week has decided that church and state and the IRS is having an overhaul. And now churches, obviously, they singled out churches, but churches can now support political figures. Well, just in time for Mamdani, because apparently what is going on is that all mosques in New York City have a get out to vote, get out to register, and they are saying that Mamdani is actually being called by Allah to be the mayor of the biggest city in the United States, New York City, and that all Muslims are basically required by their mosques to register to vote and to vote for Mamdani. And since only 17% of New Yorkers even voted in the last election, that is not good, a good sign for the future of New York City. But, you know, if this is where they're headed, this is where they're headed. It's not a surprise. We have the Democrat socialist slash communist mayor of Boston. We have the communist black supremacist mayor of Chicago. We have the Cuban radical National Endowment for Democracy mayor of Los Angeles.